Hello there, I'm Dominic St-Pierre. You're listening to Go Podcast. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about, something interesting that is coming very soon. I think it's on Go 122. It will be Iterators, and it's not a huge change that will throw you out of your chair or something like that. But it's interesting. To me, it feels good to have those kind of changes, even after that many years and things like that. It's nice to see that coming. Before we dive in, though, if you want to support this podcast and you appreciate the content, make sure you check my courses. I have two courses. One that just came out last month, which is called Build a Google Analytics in Go. I also have a Build SaaS Apps in Go. So those are two online courses that can be bought from my website. There's a discount on the show note as well if you want to support this, or you are genuinely interested into those kind of topic and content and whatnot. Also, I'm a French Canadian, basically. So, yes, I'm not pronouncing my S's at the right place. I don't pronounce the H and things like that. There's a lot of things that I don't do properly in English. My first language is French. In Quebec, we speak French, even though Canada is, it seems to be mostly English, but, we are a bilingual countries. And the province of Quebec, do have French first, so the native language of all people in Quebec is French. Again, so small aside, but yes, it's something like that I've heard a little bit. So yes, I tend to not pronounce things properly, which I'm totally fine with. If you want to to save some time as well, lots of people told me that they listen to me at 2x, and it's still very very nice. So maybe my normal pace is probably very slow, and at 2x, well, you still have all the content in half the time, which is good. All right, let's return to this iterators thing. So iterators are nice, especially, in my opinion, I keep saying that, I start to feel like I'm repeating myself, but I've worked mostly with data in all my careers. So to me, iterators on a large data set that I need to build an ETL around, or any kind of data processing is great. So if you are not familiar with iterators, so the first example that I can give is could be a very easy thing. So instead of doing a for loop with let's say that you want to loop over integers value from 0 to 100, for example. So you need to do something like that. So you would do a for high equals 0, and semicolon I is less than 100, and semicolon I plus plus, whatever, the traditional for loop that we are all used to do. So what is coming very soon is that the range operator will be it will be able to range over an int value. So that that's probably the simplest way of thinking about iterators, to be frank. So let's start with that. So in when this change is live on the Go, the stable branch, if you will, well, you will be able to do something like for I column equal range a constant or an int value. It could be a function as well, and anything that is an int, and it will loop from 0 to that value exclusively. So that's just a small way to do a for loop, if you will, but without without the traditional for loop. So it's that is good. That is good because you can think of readability, for example. It's still a little bit less verbose. I personally, I am a blind person, if you don't know. So I mean, to me it feels good. It's not like for loops are extremely difficult to parse or to hear in a screen reader and whatnot. But I mean, it's just a little bit smaller cognitive effort that needs to be put there. But since we are already using those for range kind of way of doing that for most of the thing, maps, you can have that for slices, you can have that for channels as well. So I mean, I think it's natural that at some point we also have that for int. So that being said, this is interesting, but this is not really what I find the most interesting or exciting, to be frank. So to me, iterators, the way that I'm seeing that the proposal is shaping up, and this is probably what we will receive at some point, is that like I was saying, if we return to my example of having a large data set. What I mean by large data set, I mean let's say that you have a flat file. It could be a CSV, it could be whatever. You need to process something for each line of a 5 GB file. So in traditional way that we are doing today, we need to, well, first of all, read the file, probably kind of split that in line by line feed or whatever. I mean, at some point you will receive a slice that correspond to one element is one line in your file. The downside with that is that you will still need to read that thing entirely into memory, and could be fine reading 5 GB at once, but I mean at some point you will still need a lot of RAM on the servers and whatnot to just to do that. A preferred way to handle that kind of file size, if you will, for processing is to try to limit the number of memory that you are loading, and the amount of data that you are reading, which is lowering, if that's a word, the amount of memory that is used. And the iterators that are coming soon will allow us to yield some result as we are reading them. So imagine that we could have a function that is responsible for reading just a tiny part. It could be reading I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 lines at the same time, whatever, or maybe just one line, and it yields that line to the iterator. So we would have a for loop that resembled to something like, I don't know, for line column equal range. Let's have a function here. So the right side of our range would be something like I don't know, next line from the file, and we could pass a file path, for example. And this function, next line from a file, would be responsible from opening the file, reading just one line, for example, and there will be a loop in there as well. But the thing is, we would just yield one line at a time. So the advantage of that is that the color of the main for range, for example, can have some kind of control. So let's say that the goal of this thing would be to find a line in that 5 GB file that starts with something, I don't know, an ID of some sort. And as soon as you find this ID, then you don't need to read more. So if that line is at the middle of the file, then still only had to read half of the file basically, and when you find that line, you can return. So there's a lot of reason to use iterators. That is just one example that to me is probably something that I would use right away. So I won't go into too much detail about how to define this next line from file function, because it's a little bit you need to see that. I think you need to see it. It has the yield keyword, so basically you are returning a function that also kind of yield a function of a type. And we we will have full generics possibilities in there as well. So this function that is yield return a boolean. So this is what the range operator will be based on. And now if the yield called return false, it means that we are we have exited the main loop. And now this iterator can just close or do some cleanup, as they say, directly there. So again, I mean, I understand that from a podcast it might be difficult to see that, but if we are just talking about iterators in general, so whatever the syntax for defining them, it will come in time. But the point is, I think it's interesting. Again, it's not like the generics or things like that in terms of big changes, but I can see some usage. And you might think, well, we could already have done that this exact example. So today, how would I have handled a 5 gigabyte file, for example? Well, I would have used probably channels for sure. Probably a buffered channel that would be able to receive some kind of data. I mean, as soon as I'm reading a chunk of data, I would pass that to a channel. But again, I mean, like they are saying, and I fully adhere to this explanation as well. Inserting concurrency for just a for loop basically might not be worth it. For all the complexity that concurrency brings, and it's usually not negligible. The amount of just the amount of complexity, even if Go is pretty it's making it very simple to build concurrent program. There's still a lot of risk of doing it wrong potentially. And for something as simple as just wanting to iterate over something that does not need to be read in its entirety, it's very interesting. And you can think of having I don't know, a huge database operation that just yields one things at a time. Anything that can be stopped as well, and that you don't need to have a full slice, for example, is great. So again, there will be I think it's called a iter package, which will expose a sec in a sec2 structure, basically, where we can either return one item to the for loop or two. So basically, for example, when you are doing a for range over a maps, for example, then you are receiving a key value, and when you are doing a for range over a slice, you are receiving an index in a value. So now it will be up to you if you are going to create an iterator. It will be up to you if you want to receive to return just the item itself or two value, and the two value can be up to you. It's not required to have an index, for example. It could also be it could also be two different types. So one item and maybe one error, for example, the error type, and now you have a way to because let's say that we are reading this huge file one line at a time. If someone or some process is going to delete that file, our iterator will kind of encounter an error. There will be an error. It will not be able to read from that file, and we need to be able to send that to the for loop that is using this iterator. So I mean, I hope it was a little bit clear. It's not very easy to talk about those things when there's a lot of new syntax in a podcast, for sure. But if you are interested, I encourage you to check that. For me, I mean, it seems to be good. I kind of like the idea, to be frank, and I can see a lot of functionality. So they were talking about the string.split, for example, in the standard library that could have a variant where instead of returning a slice, it could return a sequence, basically, or an iterator, more specifically. So that sounds great. I mean, if we want to string split something that is extremely huge, or there's no need to traverse the entire thing, yes, there's some value, and I know that there's a lot of languages that do have the yield keyword as well. So it's nice. It's nice to be able to pass the control back to somewhere, to some place, do something, return to that function, do something, yield back to the caller and whatnot. So all right. On that, I will see you next week.